Hello, and welcome to episode 52 of Trails in the Pod. I'm Colin, that's Kevin.
Ooh, Colin, I said I wouldn't cry, but thinking about having to do a full podcast episode on this audio drama, I gotta say, those tears are gonna flow.
Well, that's why we're not doing it entirely on this audio drama. We're also going to talk a little bit about your hopes and dreams for Crossbell. I have to say, right off the bat, I wasn't expecting the world from this audio drama, which we'll describe what it is in a minute, but I was surprised at how much I did not like it. And we've been on a negative streak lately. I don't want this to be a shift that Trails in the Pod is always negative about Trails.
No.
But this piece of media is not good.
I mean, yeah, this is like one of those bad video game adaptations that were really common 20 years ago, turn of the millennium, except this is already a game. So they have this flat, uninspired piece. Now, we can get some interesting stuff about it, like why does this exist? Why does it have a seemingly interesting premise that is forgotten about within the first 30 seconds or so? Maybe 45 if we're being generous. And then we're going to get into the Crossbell games with my predictions, my hopes. What do I want from this new arc? What do I expect? What do I think is going to happen? Characters, themes, what's the SS? S, as Colin always reminds me, put in that final of the three syllable letters, and so I'm looking forward to that. And if anyone's seen Mystery Science Theater 3000, this audio drama is perfect for them. That's a one-sentence summary of the quality. This should be Mystery Science Theatered, and I hope I did not just date myself.
You did. Definitely did. But let's describe what this is and also why we're not doing Sora no Kiseki right now. I'm sorry, Ys versus Sora no Kiseki right now, as we promised that we would do last episode.
Yeah, I mean, I'm ready for Ys. Colin has been, for whatever reason, dragging his feet, refusing to play. Last night, he messaged me saying he could play the game, but he was choosing not to because he wanted to disappoint our loyal podcast listeners, and that made me angry.
That is also not what happened.
So?
We both realized that, time to record was coming. This is a video game. It's not like you can just blast through it completely. We wanted to give ourselves time to actually play the game and to see what it had to offer. At least that's my thing. Now, I know that I just installed it on my PSTV today, so I'm ready to go. I don't know if you've even set it up yet. Have you set it up yet?
I've beaten it, Colin. That's a lie.
You've beaten it.
I've not set it up yet.
That is a lie.
I'm going to do that after we record.
Good man. Okay, so that's why we're not doing Sora no Kiseki Ys versus Sora no Kiseki right now. We're doing that next week. We're moving this one up because A, it's Trails related. Planescape Torment will not happen this month. It will happen before the end of the year, I promise, but it's not happening right now. So, this audio drama, what is it? It's completely an audio. The YouTube has visuals. It has stills from the games and dialogue boxes. I personally do not know if that is real. That might be a fan thing just to give the translation something to look at while you're listening to the thing. But it is fan translated into English with subtitles. You still listen to the Japanese voices. It's set in Zeiss. Joshua and Estelle had already gone to Crossbell, met all the people there, though they had not found Ren. Then they went back to Zeiss for reasons we'll talk about. And this has to be placed before the ending of the manga that we had just read, Ring of Judgment, because at the end of that manga, Estelle and Joshua are in Crossbell in the events of Zero, and we know that they don't leave after that point, or at least I know that. So somehow they will have gone to Crossbell, left Crossbell, and then gone back to Crossbell.
Yes. So that's a good plot. Now I want to step back and say, an audio drama. What is that exactly? What genre are we talking about? And what kind of things can we should we expect from it as a conventional matter? So in audio drama, it's a lot like essentially the radio theater of, say, the 20s, 30s, 40s, before the TV era. It's like a dramatic podcast, so to speak, where you would see original and adapted stories for voice work done in installments over days, sometimes weeks, on rare occasions, months, and you could follow along the stories in sequence. Before TV, this was the primary route how people engaged with fiction that was not read. They didn't read it in the book or see it on a movie screen. So this was, the mass piece of media, a very early form of mass popular culture. And some audio dramas were absolutely huge, and the vocal performers were not household names like movie stars, but still managed to earn a living. And we can kind of see this in the presentation of the organization. We see discrete scenes that have beginnings, middles, and ends. There's not Some of them are fairly independent, but if you read between the lines, you can get a good idea of what happened. So you missed an episode. You have a good idea of what was on in the one that you missed. Now, for here, it's 40
Yeah,
minutes long in entirety, so it's a lot different in scale. But think of this like a long form podcast episode or a podcast series more than a TV show, more than a manga, a movie, or a game.
I do wonder how much our enjoyment of it as English speakers is limited by the fact that we can, like, it's not like I can drive to work and have this on at the car,
No.
right? In the way that something like this would normally be consumed. We have to read it, which means that we can't split our attention. We have to pay attention to each of the words. And a big thing that an audio drama has to have, it's not just good voice acting, it's expressive voice acting,
Yes.
because nothing else is going to indicate movement or emotion or anything. Which is, I excuse the audio drama for being way over the top. They are definitely going out of their way to be bombastic, loud, expressive, and in a lot of ways that is necessitated by the form. However, because we are primarily reading it, and then having these voices come on in the background, I do wonder if there's a disconnect, that we're not getting the full experience.
That could very well be. I think we can agree we're not consuming this media in the format it's meant to be consumed, and that does change things.
No.
However, Colin, I think even if we be generous on that regard, it's still so low. We would still come to the verdict, man, this sucks.
So, before we get into why we think it's really bad, which is going to be primarily what we talk about,
Well, why we know? Why we know?
why we know it's bad, can you give us a brief plot summary, just so that we can have everything laid on the table?
Yeah, I'll try to do it in under, say, 5 seconds. And if I struggle to fill that much time, Colin, maybe you can jump in and help me if I can't get it that long. Okay, the ostensible,
Oh my god, dude, you're so fucking sassy today.
and believe me, Colin, when I say ostensible premise is Joshua and Estelle are looking for Ren. This is following on the events of the third. What this devolves into is a wacky series of hijinks with Tita, Agate, Tita's parents, that has a weird interlude about Joshua confessing like his deep insecurity to two people he's never met before with the aid of alcohol. So, in brief,
Well, it's not true. That is an incorrect description of Joshua getting drunk with Sherazade.
and Erika and what's his face?
Erika was already drunk before that conversation happened. She got put to
Okay,
bed.
yes, you are correct. My bad. So they meet Tita and Agate, Joshua and Estelle. They meet Tita. Agate's coming to visit Tita in Zeiss. His airliner, they think, is hijacked. Nothing nearly so exciting. They have to make an emergency landing. They go. There's no drama or stakes. Tita comes, rescues them. They go back to Tita's house. Erika Russell tries to kill Agate a number of times. They have dinner. Agate and Tita talk in bed. Everyone else, except Mrs. Russell,
No, Agate and Tita do not talk in bed.
Estelle and
Tita
Tita.
talk
I
in
just
bed.
watched this morning and I can't remember. Can't bother to remember about it. Yeah, Estelle has some.
Well, again, that part makes a big
Yes,
difference.
I'm sorry. And then Joshua talks about his insecurities. I guess the highlight of this is him saying he's not worried about Estelle seeing and leaving him or anything so trite. He's worried about falling into despair and darkness. He's going to pull her down. And that's the emotional high point of this episode.
Yeah, and let me just say a positive thing.
Yeah, positive thing.
I think the positive thing. I think that exploring Joshua's feelings about that a little bit more is interesting. Because we had talked even a bit on this podcast that, the kind of stuff that Joshua had gone through, it's not something that you can kind of fix overnight. It's something that he has to process over time. We see a little of that processing in this in one of the doors with Chloe and Joshua, where Chloe admits to Joshua that she really likes him. But that's it. Here we see that even still, he is grappling with, is it right for her that I'm still with her? My actions, will they impact her in a negative way? That's interesting.
That is indeed interesting. And the audience is a good one. So we have Sharon, who's known them together growing up since Joshua came in and been in the presence in Estelle's life for years beforehand. It's like confiding in a big sister. I don't want to say it's a Louvre equivalent, but it's on the right trajectory, on the same path. Because Joshua, so often in his relationship with Estelle, he's the stoic one who has, answers. He's experienced and so forth. So he has to bear that emotional burden. He does not get to relieve himself of all that often. We see him do it with Cassius Bright. We see him do it with Sheriff. There's not that many people who, one, he has the type of relationship to, and then second, that he would feel comfortable bearing his soul. Like, what's the Venn diagram of people who he's close to enough and those who know his backstory enough to accept this? It's two people, essentially.
Yeah. And also, I think that this scene itself kind of presents Joshua with an appropriate venue to do it. Joshua is not somebody who's just going to randomly talk to you about what's going on in his feelings. But it's a lot different when you're up late drinking, there's conviviality, people like each other, most people are lubricated, though Joshua appears not to be. This is one of those occasions in which somebody who is normally tight-lipped can be prodded to open up. Yes. In my opinion, the existence of this scene is objectively good. What the fuck it's doing in this audio drama, I don't know. And I don't know if it was worth it to consume this audio drama to get this little nugget.
Watch it independently and basically be okay. But within the audio drama itself, it's tonally jarring and dissonant. And I don't know how to talk about it. Do we go... It's about, 6-7 scenes. Do we go scene by scene? There's just not much to dissect.
No, I mean, I don't think we want to go scene by scene, but there are some important things to bring up, to criticize. For instance, the hook of this audio drama is that Estelle and Joshua still can't find Ren in Crossbell, even though they know that she is there. And so they decide to come back to Laburel in order to find Ourobouros, because they figure that Ourobouros might know where Ren is. And, Kevin, I have a question for you. Where the fuck is Ourobouros in this audio drama?
It's not a bad idea that they have. I mean, if you accept the premise that Crossbell is a city, that they somehow think it's better to go outside the city to look for Ren in the city than make and cultivate contacts in the city. Okay, but, whatever. I don't think it's that bad to look... Go on.
Wait. Also, who from Ourobouros are they going to contact?
Weissman?
They're all fucking dead! I mean, think about it. Luciola, at least as far as they know, is dead. Though it's not confirmed to the player, but she's gone. Ren is gone. Walter could still be around. I don't know if it looked like he died or not. And then Luva is definitely dead. Weissman is dead. So what? Are they going to call up Campanella?
That is an interesting little bit because, say, as we saw with the manga, that they presumably experienced the events of a couple weeks in the past. It's difficult to identify when Ouroboros is connected to stuff.
Just a note for our listeners. There's a huge rainstorm happening right by my mic, so I'm going to try to minimize that by post, but it's definitely being picked up. So my apologies if y'all can hear that. But yeah, I agree with you, Kevin. It's difficult to know when they're involved in stuff. Also, it's difficult to know how you would even get in contact with them.
They don't have a PO box, I assume. But it just doesn't make sense to.
No.
Do they have reason to think Ren has left Crossbell? No, I don't think they do. So.
But even setting aside the fact that maybe this isn't the best well laid out plan, in the audio drama itself, this is brought up as their reason for coming back to Zeiss, and then it is completely forgotten about. They never try to find Ouroboros. Ouroboros does not show up. It is not present here. As soon as they meet Tita, it's the Tita show the whole way through.
And what new do we get about Tita? What of her arc at the end of SC? Or the end of the third? What newness about her arc, about who she is, about her relationships do we see? Her open question, her room for growth and change really linked to Ren and that conversation they will have that Ren may or may not be amenable to, that may come down to violence or coercion. We don't get that here. We get this retreading of familiar, I would say, stale ground.
So the one new thing that we do get is that Tita, when she hears or fears that Agate might be in danger, she does take it upon herself to act by taking the Orbal gear and going to try to save him. Now, she does this in a seemingly emotionally unstable way in that she is driven by grief and fear so much that Estelle has to scream at her, which, I mean, she even literally warns the listener to plug their ears, because then she's going to scream right into the microphone at Tita to stop it.
Yeah, because she's going to kill a lot of people in the airship, that's not Tita.
It's not Tita. I mean, Tita has some emotional moments in which she's driven by, like, love for Agate, right? But she's not insane.
So, didn't we get this little beat and then resolve it successfully in the middle of FC? On the top? Yeah, like, this is not...
Yes. I mean...
We've done this already.
On top of that, the vast majority of Tita's dialogue, at least maybe not quite literally, because I haven't counted up the words, but the impression of Tita that you get is of a little crybaby. I mean, she literally has the words ooh-woo in her dialogue.
Yes, I mean, that's how I began the episode. Ooh-woo! Which is not how... And it's kind of weird.
It's weird. And, like, I know that we have some Tita fans in our audience who will hear this and say, like, oh, maybe they just don't like Tita. I think this is a regression of Tita's character. The reasons why we like Tita is because even though she's small, she's brave, she thinks through things rationally, she's able to think about Orbal tech in ways that other people haven't before. You know, she's interesting as a character. Here, she's just used as a plot prop.
And her Orbal gear little boost in the third makes her one of the best melee units in the game. So, I guess that.
There's that. Apparently. Not that I ever used that, but I understand that is something that can happen.
It's a regression of a character. And then that makes the, whatever you want to call it with Agate, that much worse. Because we have the infantilization of Tita, that when the crush on Agate is given so much prominence and attention. And it doesn't help Tita's character, how she's like, oh, Agate patted my head. Like,
Yeah. Even in moments like that you could see that as just Tita and Agate having their own thing. It can still be a brother and sister thing. But at this point, we literally have people like Estelle asking Tita about Agate. It's other people who are making insinuations that there's something more going on here. In my opinion, it's a bit jumping the gun, and when it's combined with the complete infantilization of Tita, it's not successful. And there are successful ways to do this.
Yeah, you're right. There are successful ways to do this. You cannot combine the romance with the infantilization. It's weird and creepy. Also, Colin, pour one out for Tita. She seems to have suffered a huge memory problem.
Okay. In what way?
She's like, does either forget or never knew or is unaware what her mom thinks of Agate.
Yeah. This was something that I brought up to you because the entire time, Tita seems to be unaware of the fact that not just Agate at this point, literally all of her friends are delayed for dinner because Erika Russell has booby-trapped her. I don't know if it's just her house or the areas around her house, but seemingly for hours they are delayed by deadly traps. And not only does Tita not know any of this, she seems to forget the fact that she was herself used as a trap for Agate in the second half of her Moon Door, in which Agate was a test subject for the Orbital Gear.
It's inexplicable. It's almost as inexplicable as the dialogue itself. Like, characters have voices. You should, in an ideal world, be able to read dialogue without a character's name and know who said it, based on the speech patterns, the context, the little things that make us all separate and unique and interesting, or at least make me separate and unique and interesting. I don't know what all of you sheeple do, but
God damn it.
it's flat. I think that's the best way to describe the dialogue here is flat, and you can just swatch it out. Like,
yeah,
my stew.
Yes, but I do want to point out this is a fan translation, right? We
Okay.
don't have the capability of evaluating how this
Okay.
dialogue actually
I
is
forgot.
in the original.
That is important, and that takes the sting. Okay, fan translation, then I'll take back what I said. For a fan translation, unpaid people, it's good. So, my bad.
That being said, we can critique the fact that there are entire lines of dialogue of, oh my god, everybody liked my stew! I mean, I make a good stew. I have people over for dinner. I don't make a diary entry about it every time it happens. I don't text Kevin bragging about it.
You should.
I should.
I'd say congrats.
The one time you came over, you didn't even let me cook for you. You made me take you to Chipotle instead.
I wasn't going to make the person who hosted me also cook. That's not what you do.
But I wanted to. Anyway, this is neither here nor there, but I'm editing this episode, so it's staying in. I want to talk...
I will say this. Something that is not... It's gotten beyond the point of Mama Bear looking out for her, in Kevin's opinion, way too young daughter. Let's just overlook that for a bit. Chris Hansen's going to say, Agate, why don't you have a seat? It's like, and we see this with a lot of people, they're exaggerated caricatures of themselves. Like you said, Colin, there's like hours of obstacles. She's devolved into a quasi-homicidal psychopath.
Yeah. I mean, I posted this on Twitter, that after this audio drama, Dan needs to divorce Erika, and Erika should be arrested. And
yes.
one of the friends of the show, Griswold, disagrees with this, so I just want to point out to him that not everybody agrees, and I thank Griswold for having an exchange with me on this. But my logic goes like this. Number one, let's set the scene. Dan and Erika Russell abandoned their daughter for years to be raised up by her grandfather so that Erika and Dan could go off and do science. Then they come back, and immediately Erika starts treating Tita as if she's approximately 5 to 6 years old. it's even worse here, in which it's not just, I love my daughter so much. Erika has now become, she's mine. And nobody, not just Daggett, who you could say as a parent, okay, well, it's this older guy, my daughter seems to have a crush on him, I don't like that. Now it's literally everybody. It's Estelle, it's Joshua, it's Sherazard, it's Aina. They cannot touch my daughter. It's only me. This is my daughter. So then she tries to go on a murderous rampage to stop anybody from having a connection with her fucking daughter.
There's a little bit I read that I thought was really interesting. It's like saying you're mine, not like a toothpaste, not like a possession that's mine to hoard and keep secret, but you're mine like a neighborhood or a favorite restaurant where I can share you with other people. And this, if you understand what I'm saying here, how Erika Russell does not think of Tita as hers in the way she wants to, guard and protect until Tita is ready to go into the world herself. Tita Russell is hers like a thing. It's hers and no one else's.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I read it in a tweet about Yellow Jackets.
I mean, the upshot is, like, if I was in Dan's perspective, I would notice that my wife is a danger to the well-being of my child. Like, that's how bad this is. Also, where is Russell? Where's Professor Russell? Albert? He's normally a good counterbalance. He seems to be just completely gone. Maybe he went off to Lehman State, it was mentioned in the audio drama, aka they couldn't hire the voice actor back, I assume.
Who? Colin, I have no idea who you are talking about. Why would the man who raised Tita for a number of years have anything to do with this audio drama?
Right. There's one last scene that I think is worth of us talking about, which would be Estelle coming up to sleep with Tita. And I gotta be honest, I think the only reason why this is here is because if Estelle was around, Joshua would not have been able to talk about his insecurities with everybody else, so she had to be removed. So instead, you just have this cute little... Well, cute in big-ass air quotes, because I don't think it's that cute. You have this scene in which Estelle offers to sleep in the same bed as Tita, and then Estelle immediately falls asleep, and so Tita keeps yelling at her to see if she'll get up, which seems way out of character for Tita, in my opinion, because Tita is not a disrespectful little brat. I do think it's interesting that when she cuddles up to Estelle, she claims that it's just like her mother, and that kind of reinforced to me how sad it is that her mother is nuts.
It's weird. What she does with Estelle's cheeks is weird.
Yeah, she just starts messing around her cheeks. I assume it's her facial cheeks.
Jesus Christ, Colin.
Look, I assume.
I don't know how to talk about this beyond weird. Give some horrifying little insight into her home situation.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about for this audio drama?
I think there could have been some really good stuff in there. Hunting Ouroboros, or have it just be about the character growth and work with Estelle and Joshua and the very real tensions and what say you, but instead, like, we just didn't get something that's much good. We spent half an hour talking about it, and that's about all we can do.
And that's exactly how much time Pork Bob said this would take, too. I mean, it's kind of... They start off, I think, with an more or less interesting hook, even if you think about it too closely, it doesn't make much sense, but it's decent enough. And then they open up with, hey, we went to Crossbell, we met all of these cool people, like Arios McLean, who is a character who will be important. You know, this could have been an opportunity to explore Crossbell through the eyes of Joshua and Estelle, and have them talk about their experiences with the people who they teamed up with in Liberal, which would then, canonically speaking, give these characters reasons to know anything that's going on at Crossbell. And instead, we get an Uwu Fest.
It's not good. You know what else isn't good?
What isn't good, Kevin?
Ignorance. We're both current or former teachers. We love to enlighten students. And to do that, you need knowledge. But Colin, I don't have knowledge about Crossbell.
No, you don't.
So how can my ignorance be dispelled? Can't. And I'm sad. So the best thing that we can do is talk about what do I think will happen? What do I want to happen? And maybe, Colin, that veil of ignorance will be cast aside.
I think the other way to put this is, we don't have a full episode this week. How do we capitalize on Kevin's ignorance to make content?
I'm insulted. I mean, I tried, but I'm still insulted.
So, what kinds of things are you even thinking about predicting? I mean, we've talked about some themes that can pop up. We could also talk about, like, political situations, maybe characters you think are coming in. Like, what are you thinking?
So, the SSS is they're active either police officials or auxiliary or affiliated with the police, correct?
Yes.
So I hope to God they're not 15, 16, 17 years old. But if they are, young adults, I mean, granted, I'm sure at our age they'll seem impossibly young to us, but that's more us than them. I predict for themes we won't see as much self-discovery, self-actualization that characterized so much of the liberal arc. They'll be past that really formative, experimental, if you want to call it, stage in their development. So, what kind of growth and questions can we come up with to grapple? I have no idea. And that's really interesting. Because Joshua and Estelle is a pretty prototypical coming of age romance and story. And that's not a criticism by any means.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm really excited, not just curious, but excited to discover Lloyd Bannings and why he is your favorite of the protagonists so far.
Sure.
Anything you can tell me about him?
Yeah, I guess just to speak vaguely, I mean, Lloyd is somebody who has to face...
He eats food.
Yes, he does have to eat food. That's true. That's pretty important, actually. Turns out the rest of the SSS also has to eat food. Lloyd is somebody who has a pretty good sense of justice, but also he's somebody who has a lot of, one might say, barriers that he has to climb over or get through. And he's able to do that only by working hard and finding a solution, unlike some other protagonists, either in this series or in other Japanese media. It's not like there's a hidden power in him that gives him the secret strength to break through and kill a demon. He's a very well-written, down-to-earth, and I mean, when I say earthly, it's in that he's a very realistic character. He's a human being. A lot of the SSS is.
And I remember Rain from Trails of Cold Steel 1, he just gets a Gundam, and I'm not really sure why.
Well, that's because you didn't play much of Cold Steel 2, in which some of that is explained. But and also with Rain, it's not just the fact that he randomly gets a Gundam, even in Cold Steel 1, but we're about a half a year away from talking about that.
That's good. I like hard work.
Here's something that I want to ask you about, because I think it's interesting to contemplate it. With SC and FC, it was all revolving around Joshua and Estelle. We had two main characters. And then, yes, we had the rest of the party, with Shara, Zin, Olivier, Chloe, but they were secondary. Here, I think it's fair to say that this doesn't spoil anything, especially since we've read Ring of Judgment and you've seen the SSS. There are four of them. There's Lloyd, there's Ellie, there's Randy, there's Tia. And
Randy?
Randy. Randy. Like the father from South Park.
Or like the Chloe's boyfriend.
His name is Lecter, dude. Also not her boyfriend.
They were going to be a thing.
They could have been a thing until he went all Erebonian. In any case, so what you have is a party that I don't know of how much I want to give away, but it's pretty much centered on these four characters. What kind of stories can you tell about a party that's focused on 4 characters as opposed to just 2.
I bet found family will be a big theme. The only thing that tempers this qualification is that I don't know if it was as prevalent in Japanese discourses as it has been in American for the past 20 years or so. Buffy the Vampire Slayer was a really big accelerant for you choose the family among your friends and so forth. It has been so omnipresent in media since then. So, but if they already have a good working relationship, that's also really interesting. We're not seeing them on the first big case together, but they've been together for some time. That's also very interesting. You save the world with some colleagues that you may not be best buds with, but you do the job. And that's also quite interesting. So either way, I'm looking forward.
Well, I want to say I'm not saying that they have always been together and have this whole thing. All I'm trying to point out is that the party is made of 4 characters, and that's the focus. I'm not making any knowledge claims about how long they've been together.
How old are they?
I don't remember their ages off the top of my head. And I'll let you find that out when we play it.
Is it like a realistic late 20s for being in a special squad of the police?
One of them, maybe. But again, I don't remember.
Oh, wow.
I don't remember their specific ages.
I bet we'll see a lot of intrigue about the 2 Goliaths in the room.
And who do you mean by the Goliaths?
Calvard and Erebonia, because Crossbell sits as an uneasy intersection between them. I believe you said that, like, it geographically separates the 2 or something.
I mean, they both Erebonia and Calvert do border each other at different places, right? We see this even in Cold Steel 1 when you go to the Nord Highlands, but Crossbell itself is in the middle. It does act as a buffer state.
So I'm looking forward to the more political elements. The third was very much a personal journey. We saw politics in FC and SC, but it was not politics in SC especially. It was more, I don't want to say a cult, but secret society machinations, manipulations, and how that, say, was impacted with the intelligence too. It's really a result of higher powers. Here, I hope and expect we get more of the political situation that itself is driving and causing plot points, if that makes sense.
I mean, totally. I mean, some of our favorite conversations on this podcast have come when we start asking questions about the political aspects of decisions being made or of treaties being signed. I mean, somehow we managed to spin a 20-minute conversation out of the diplomacy of Liberal with Calvert and Erebonia with the knowledge sharing pact. It totally makes sense to me why you want to talk more about the political aspects of Crossbell, Erebonia, Calvert, and we kind of have a special project, a plan to incorporate this better into our podcast.
This was all my idea. I came up with this. I convinced Colin. I found readings.
That is not true.
I sent you a picture this morning of a book I got from the library.
It's in my apartment. I did that.
Wow, Colin, this jealousy that's not becoming of you, I gotta say.
All right, what can you just tell the poor people what we're talking about? You thought my Amazon rant was too long.
We have 2 sidebars a month compared with 2 game content when we're doing a game. What we're going to be doing is still have 2 sidebars a month. One of them a month will be about buffer states in theory and in practice to get us into more of the mindset of what's Crossbell experiencing it. How can we talk about similar or different situations across time and place, connect it to the events and plots and characters of the game that we've been playing that month. I think, would be a really fun little sidebar series to talk about something that's in the game and very clearly modeled after real world elements, and then ask how can we take the game and improve our understanding of history, but more important, how can we take history and use it to make this game and the world and the people who live in it a deeper, richer experience to play and talk about.
Honestly, I couldn't put it better myself. I'm really
Because it
excited for
was
this
my idea.
project. It was
Yeah.
my idea. It was your idea that we talk about history more often, then I came up with a specific idea. In any case, I'm really excited for it for a couple of reasons. I mean, the first is that it's a way to incorporate into my own reading more comparative politics and comparative history, which I don't always get to do. But also, I think that it will be a real a real contribution to this rising field that we can call game studies. Right now, you get a lot of game studies based in literary studies, or so-called ludology, but it's very rare to see political analysis of the plot of a game based off of actual political science. And I think it'll be interesting for us, and it'll be interesting for our listeners who I think tune in because we have this political instinct.
Yes, and the lit approach to games is not one that me and Colin have much experience with on a practical or academic level, and that's fine. Treating games like art will involve approaches that we, for whatever reasons, don't have the capability, but we're very excited to be doing something about a topic history that we are very knowledgeable and have a lot of experience in, and to do so with a game world that rewards these kind of deep dives and interrogations. You can talk some games, some settings, you can't do it. There's not enough there. But the great thing about the Kaseki series is not just the expanse, it's what, 12, 13, 14 games and counting. But what we can do is take these deep worlds within each game and give it the attention it deserves.
Totally. So I think that the way that we're currently planning on doing it, though this is all subject to change as we set out this project, is that the first episode, which we'll be releasing next month as one of the sidebars for next month, will be talking about border states theoretically speaking. What is a border state? What's a buffer system? What kinds of concerns do we see across different time periods? Right? What are some common threats that buffer states find? What are common solutions? What are some problems that historians look for and talk about when they're talking about border states? And then, because we're doing this once per month, I will pick two case studies. Kevin will pick two case studies. And every month, that episode will be on a specific case study in which we are talking about a specific buffer state in a specific time and trying to understand all of its political underpinnings and what we can learn from it. And then we'll cap it off at the end, which should correspond to when we're finishing up Trails from Azure, but we'll see. Then we will take all of the knowledge that we've gotten and put it into dialogue with the two games that we've just played. That way we're not... my intention for this anyway, and Kevin might think differently, but my intention is that the history parts will be kind of kept separate from our considerations of the games from the beginning, so we can get a true understanding of the idea of buffer states, and only then do we bring it in to talk about Crossbell as a political unit itself.
I think that's a good way of doing things. We can have the benefits of both games and then say, what have we learned about buffer states as a whole and not piecemeal? I'm really glad to see you taking such innovation to my idea, Colin. I really appreciate the work you've done.
I am going to drive to Ohio and punch you. Anyway, we didn't even plan to reveal that project today, but I'm glad that we did. Do you have any other predictions for Crossbow that you wanted to bring up before we close it off for today?
One thing you asked me was, what kind of characters do you expect? So I bet we'll see Ren, and I bet should be a playable character because I've
Okay.
noticed something. And let me tell you what it is. We saw Kevin in SC, and then he became a protagonist in the third. And I mean, I don't think Ren, I mean, I know Ren will not be a future protagonist, but I bet she'll be a playable character for 2 games, or maybe 3. We have the third, and then it's Zero, then Azure, or is it Azure, then Zero?
Zero Dead Azure.
I bet she'll be in the first Crossbell game as a playable character. I bet we'll see Joshua and
Okay.
Estelle, and I hope to God we don't play them. They would overpower the new people narratively.
Okay. Are there any other characters you'd expect? Or some you think you definitely won't see?
I don't think we'll see Weissman, Luva.
Well, okay.
In fact,
That's a very brave claim to
I
make.
bet we won't see Ourobouros at all, actually. I bet we'll be taking a bit of a breather. I bet we'll hear about them. I bet the plots and the conflict of Crossbell, the game, would be in the city, of the potentially hostile, potentially conquering, potentially partner powers of Erebonia and Calvard. I bet it would be espionage. What good and bad can humans do on their own? No secret society to guide them. No church to thwart them. It's what do humans do that's good and bad of their own avail.
Okay. Well, we'll have to see. We're playing Is versus Sora no Kiseki next week. But then after that, it's Zero time. Prologue for Zero.
And until then, I'm Kevin, and that's Colin. See you next time.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye-bye.